Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the True Narrative Podcast. I'm your host, Million Dollar Man Mark. This episode is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, well, a lot shorter, but there was something big that happened that we wanted to fill you guys in on and let you know what's going on with. When I say big, I mean big. We're talking about as big as Gigi's gut here, and we all know that's pretty large. Now, Captain and Boston Soul have already made a couple videos outlining the gist of this whole situation that George found himself in. If you haven't watched them, feel free to. Great content being made by both of those individuals, great goons, so check out their channels. But about 2 months ago, George made a video with a woman in his work van, of all things, implying that she was in a relationship with him in some sort or another. George flips her pancakes, as she likes to put it. Well, that woman was named Shelly. Shelly and her boyfriend Kevin found us on a Discord not too long ago. Shelly told us all about her time with George and how gut-wrenchingly miserable it was. Pretty good. So Shelly hopped on the Discord with her boyfriend Kevin. They did an interview with the Inner Circle for about an hour and a half or so. Unfortunately, Shelly asked during this process that if we air the interview, we not use the full audio from it. She didn't want her voice publicly affiliated any more than it already has been with George. She actually said she's going to file a copyright or a privacy complaint on George's channel to get that video taken down because she didn't know what he was doing at the time. So we may be able to release the audio at some point. We're working on it. We're trying to get it down. But for now, I'm just going to quote and summarize the nuts and bolts of that interview and what she had to say about George. Now, Shelly said that she met George when George was doing his medical transport job that he does. You could see he was in the work van when he made that video about flipping pancakes. George was giving her rides to a methadone clinic because she's a recovering addict. And after 2 or 3 rides, Shelly claimed that George seemed like he was head over heels in love with her. It was crazy. She couldn't believe it. She claims that George was also one of the worst drivers that she's ever ridden with. He was constantly talking and texting on his cell phone with people while driving around. And she said, I quote, I would ask him to pay more attention to the road than his phone, and he told me he's a damn good driver and can do both. He also didn't wear a seatbelt because he's too fat and couldn't fit it around him without an extender and didn't want to buy one. Which you would think with George's driving experience and how terrible he is at it, that he would be the first one to wear a seatbelt. I asked Shelly about George's personal hygiene, and she said, quote, George smelled horrendous. He had wrappers all over his van, and it was messy as hell in there. I could barely stand it. I don't know how anybody could live in that. I had to put a window down whenever I went into his van. If I couldn't put the window down, it would have been unbearable. I mean, that doesn't surprise anybody. Boston took pictures of George when he was in his car, and we saw how messy it was. Henry's taking pictures of it. We saw how messy it was. And we know that George stinks because the old people in the Phyllis call, George admitted, complained that he smelled like piss. So poor Shelly's having to go and get this medical treatment she needs or whatever, and she's forced to ride with smelly, stinky George, smelling of piss and like water trash. Now, Shelly had a boyfriend at the time that she was seeing George, but she told George that it was her cousin, and that she lived with her cousin. So George bought that because he's so insanely desperate and couldn't see the red flags. And she saw George as an easy mark. So she started playing him a little bit. He was giving her money for drugs and sexual favors and stuff, just handy, easy shit like that. And she said that he has, quote, one of the smallest dicks I've ever seen. And when I saw that hernia of his, I gagged. George couldn't keep it up. It was pathetic. I'm not proud of it all, but I needed the money. Which, I mean, unscrupulous behavior, but it's George. He just allows himself to fall for it over and over again. And it was a very funny thing having confirmation that as much as George talks about other people's dicks and dongs and everything, that he is confirmed to have a 2-inch dong in that hernia of his. Ugh, I couldn't even imagine it. George, get that taken care of. It's going to burst and you're going to die. Like, why are you giving money for hand jobs when that could be going towards a surgery for a life-threatening issue that you have going on. You are so fucking dumb. Shelly said not too long after they started, hanging out and stuff, George was already hinting that he thought she was his girlfriend. And he was asking her really weird things. Like one time he asked her if she wants more kids. And another one was, quote, if he's creepy, stuff like that. Like, you've barely known this woman for, however long, not long at all. And you're already asking about, like, having kids with them. George, no wonder you need to stoop this low to find people like that. Like, that's just creepy, disgusting behavior. It was revealed that she got about a couple $100 off of George, and she said, quote, I did not want to mess with it anymore. It wasn't worth the money he was giving me. He somehow became more and more disgusting every time I saw him, so I said, fuck it, I'm out. I didn't need to go to the clinic anymore, so I didn't need the rides anyways. And she ghosted him. George, then being George, and obsessive as he is, blew up her phone. He was calling her constantly, sending her constant text messages, calling her all kinds of names and accusing her of this, that, and the other, and he just couldn't take the fucking hint. So the best part about this is George eventually put two and two together and figured out that Kevin wasn't Shelly's cousin. It was actually her boyfriend. So George rolled over to Kevin's house where Shelly was staying and tried to confront the two of them. And her boyfriend, she said, was just telling George off. And George was just sitting there taking it. And just like the bitch he is. Shelly said she's never laughed so hard at her entire life. Is just watching George just sit there and just like do nothing as he gets ridiculed. And then he just drove off and they both laughed. And Shelly said when her boyfriend was yelling at him, she said, quote, yeah, I made sure I let him know he had one of the tiniest dicks that I've ever seen in my entire life. Her boyfriend looked us up in Discord shortly after this happened because of she remembered George talking to her about us. He was telling her about the trolls, and they got a hold of the inner circle, and that's where we stand now with it. So here we are again. Another woman taking advantage of Gigi. Another woman. How many is this now? 10, 15, 20? If it's not a woman, it's a greeting card. Nigerian prince taking advantage of him. This is how pathetic George is. He can't go out to a bar or online date. He's got to do it while he's working with people who are trapped in that car with him as he's taking them to get medical procedures done. Scummy, scummy behavior. They're forced to sit in a car with him, trapped. They can't get out. And George counts on this. He knows that these women are in these positions. They're vulnerable, and he thinks he can take advantage and control them. And all it ends up happening is the tables get flipped on him. George underestimates the woman, and the woman realizes he's the easiest mark in the entire world and rings him for several hundred, if not thousands of dollars, depending on who the woman is this time. Jamie was like that. Sue was like that. Ellen was like that. You can read George's book, and there's multiple women in there. I'm blanking on their names because I tried to forget that abomination that I read. And it just typical Yardian behavior. I mean, I'm not surprised in the least this happened. Women taking George to the cleaners. What else is new? George, you are such a beta simp. Normally, I wouldn't condone taking advantage of someone like that, like Shelly did to you. And I look at George, just so pathetic. And I think, am I just kicking a man when he's at his lowest? Like, is this right? Should I be doing this? And it's like, nah, George, you know what? You raped Jamie Whalen, and you're the reason that she died. You're a serial abuser. You're a stalker. You harass women. You're a serial harasser. You try, and thankfully, unsuccessfully, to take advantage of them, and you're a documented racist, and you shit your pants after drinking one beer. So no, don't feel sorry about it at all. This will keep happening. Tile, old as time, George Yaird, women. How can we take advantage of this stupid simpleton, this man who gives people money for sex and then makes a video to own trolls saying that he's got a woman? George, we all know when we saw that video that you were paying that woman. Like, you're not fooling anybody. We're not dumb. You may think we're dumb, but we're not. We own you. The inner circle owns you. The goons own you, and Shelly owns you. You are a professional moron and will continue to expose you for as long as you live. It will never stop. And for good reason, because you're scum of the earth, and it doesn't take very much to realize that. Hell, Shelley realized that after being with you for a couple of days, from what she said. And you're just such a beta. Such a beta. If George was more in tune with current technology, he would be the person you'd see on news stories giving every single penny of his money to some OnlyFans actress or whatever model you want to call him. And he's living in a van in the Costco parking lot. Meanwhile, he's transferring all of his hard-earned DoorDash and medical transport money to some chick so he can talk to her AI chatbot and thinks he's really talking to her. Oh, she's so in love with me. I'm going to go move in with her. I'm George. I'm an idiot. I'm surprised Shelley didn't get the talk that he gave Phyllis when he was crying about having no descendants. I have no descendants. I have no family. I have nothing. Shut up, George. You will never have anything because you have done this to yourself. You are disgusting. No woman wants to be with you unless you pay them. And even then, I don't think they really want to. They just want the money really bad. But I digress. Now, we all know George is sitting and listening to this and, just fuming angry. And he's going to say that we're lying and we're a bunch of, malcontents. We don't know what we're talking about. Shelley's a scorned woman and all this shit. George, if I'm saying the false narrative, then make a video and prove me wrong. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where Shelley's wrong. Tell us, George, because the goons set the true narrative. You are a fountain of misinformation. You do not have the cojones or the balls to come out and challenge me. I will want you to come on this program and you can debate me and tell me where Shelley was wrong, point for point, for what I went through. But you won't, because you're a coward. You won't even make a video defending yourself. That's how much of a beta you are. How much of a pushover loser you are. Anyways, that's basically the gist of what went down. So thank you guys for tuning in. I did want to give an update about the channel. Sorry for the lack of content recently. It's stuff's still working. I do plan on wanting to do some stuff over the holidays with those Saunders calls that I put up in my community post. I've just been really busy recently. I haven't been able to do them. If you have any specific Saunders calls that you guys, have listened to that you think might be funny to have more background and be covered, definitely link them, or not link them, but tell me which ones it is and I'll try and find them in my archive. I also have a backup channel that I made a while back that has a bunch of Saunders calls on it that I don't plan on taking down. So I'll link that in the description, and if you want, you can go there and listen to what's publicly available on YouTube. Otherwise, you'll just have to stick to the Google Drives. But don't lose faith in the process. You guys, your hard work will be rewarded. Hopefully this little, treat will give you something to gnaw on, as Gigi likes to say. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Sorry this episode was a lot shorter. We will do some more stuff. I want to get some True Narrative podcasts. Definitely will be more. I can assure you of that. So, George, keep up the degenerate behavior. We know you will. We'll keep exposing you. It's always hilarious how we get in your real world, because we are your karma. We are your justice, George. Don't forget that. And everybody else, take care. Have a good Thanksgiving if you're from the States. Everybody else, enjoy your week. And you'll be hearing from me soon.